This is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. It takes place during the time of the Judges, which is one of the most violent times in Israel's history. And while all the stories in the book of Judges are pretty violent, the one thing that makes this one stand out is that the heroes in this story are women. Now at this point in time, the 12 tribes of Israel had no king. They had judges to lead them instead, and the judges had two roles. Firstly, they would settle disputes. When two people came to the judge and wanted to know who was right and wrong in a specific situation, it was the judge who would interpret the law of God. And the second role is that they would help free Israel from any oppression when the Israelites cried out to God for help. There was a constant pattern during this time of the Israelites leaving God's ways, and therefore God would hand them over to their enemies, and they'd be oppressed for 20 to 40 years before the Israelites would turn and ask God for help, and God would send help in the form of a judge. So the judge at this point in time is Deborah, the only female judge that we ever have on record. Deborah sends for a man named Barak, and she tells him, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you. Call out 10,000 warriors from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun at Mount Tabor, and I will call out Sisera, the commander of King Jabin's army, along with his chariots and warriors to the Kishon River. There I will give you victory over him." The nation that was oppressing Israel at this time was Canaan, and they were terrifying. King Jabin had a general named Sisera, and he had 900 iron chariots at his disposal. Of course, this doesn't mean that the entire chariot was made out of iron, but potentially tipped with iron, making it heavier and more durable, and able to just plow through enemy infantrymen. Do you know how many chariots the Israelites had? 0. God had commanded the people of Israel not to accumulate any horses, because the main supplier of horses in the region was Egypt, and God didn't want the Israelites going back to the land that had enslaved them. So Israel only had infantry to fight against this guy's 900 iron chariots. Israel's trying to fight these chariots with the exact unit that these chariots are meant to absolutely decimate. And keep in mind, this is the Bronze Age. There's not a lot of iron around to begin with. The value of iron at this time might have been 10 times the value of gold, because it's so useful in battle. So knowing that the Canaanites had this huge technological edge over the Israelites scared Barak. So when Deborah calls Barak to take his infantrymen and go fight against these horse-drawn tanks, realizing the technological edge that they have over him, he's scared. And he says, "I'll go, but only if you go with me." Barak is doubting God's words here, and he thinks if I bring the judge with me into battle, I will have more protection from God. So Deborah responds, "I will go with you, but you will receive no honor in this venture. For the Lord's victory over Sisera will be at the hands of a woman." So Barak, with Deborah along for the ride, sends his troops into battle. Sisera calls forth all his chariots and all his foot soldiers to go into battle against the Israelites. But as soon as they do, God sends them into a panic, and they all try to run away. And the Israelites chase them down all the way back to their own territory. But on their way back, Sisera leapt from his chariot and ran off towards the land of Heber the Kenite. Heber was a descendant of Moses' brother-in-law, but he had moved his tents away from the people of Israel, and he maintained a good relationship with the king of Canaan. So when Sisera was looking for a place where he could hide and not be spotted by the Israelites, he thought, "I'll go here to the one Israelite I can trust, and the Israelites will never think that I might be there." But when Sisera arrives at Heber's tents, Heber's not there. Only Jael, his wife, and she invites him into her tent. Sisera's exhausted from first the battle and then jumping off his chariot and running all the way here. So she quickly has him lay down and puts a blanket on him. But Sisera tells Jael, "I'm thirsty, give me some water." But she instead brings him milk. This is not only treating him with a sort of kindness, kind of giving him something better than water, but it'll also help him to fall asleep. So once he drank the milk, she put the covers back on him, and he said, "Stand at the door of the tent, and if anybody comes by looking for me, tell them there's nobody inside the tent." Jael does so, standing at the edge of the tent. But now, exhausted from battle and with a stomach full of milk, he starts to drift off to sleep. And that's when Jael acts. Jael quietly creeps up to the sleeping Sisera with nothing but a tent peg and a hammer. She lines up the tent peg with the temple of his head, and then she pounds it in, through his skull and into the ground. Bam! Now Barak was still out searching for Sisera when he came across Heber's land. Jael came out to meet Barak and said, "Come with me and I'll show you who you're looking for." I imagine Barak came into that tent, sword drawn and men surrounding him, ready for a fight. But instead what they found was Barak's head pinned to the ground by a tent peg. This is one of the most brutal stories in the Bible, and the brutality is carried out by a woman. When the person that God asks to carry out a task rejects that task, God often goes and finds somebody else who is willing. Jael was available for the task, and she was resourceful. She didn't have a sword or anything, she just used whatever she could to accomplish the task that she knew needed to be done. Those are valuable lessons for us to keep in mind. It's important for us to be available for whatever God needs from us, and also to be resourceful in how we can accomplish those. We can't let the lack of resources get in the way. After 20 years of oppression, this story marks the turning point of Israel and Canaan, where they actually started being able to fight against King Jabin and come out from under his oppression. All because Jael was available and resourceful. The story's like a more gruesome version of 5 loaves and 2 fish, just using whatever resources available to you.